Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The woman's voice cut through the classical music like a knife. Victoria Ashworth, old money, new veneers, and a reputation for destroying service staff before dessert was served. Her crimson lips twisted into something between a smile and a snarl as she advanced on me, her $600 heels clicking against the floor with predatory precision. That you spilled champagne on my Valentino dress? My throat tightened. I hadn't spilled anything. The tray had been perfectly balanced when she'd deliberately bumped into me 30 seconds ago, but contradicting her would only make this worse. I'd been working catering jobs in Manhattan for 3 years, and I'd learned the hard way that people like Victoria Ashworth didn't care about truth. They cared about having someone beneath them to punish. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. If you'll just let me—" "Sorry?" She laughed, sharp and brittle. "Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? More than you make in 6 months, I'd wager." She turned to the crowd of Manhattan's elite gathered for this charity gala. How ironic, her voice rising. "This is exactly why I told the event coordinator we needed a better class of servers. Look at her. Probably just got off the bus from some nowhere town in— That's enough." The voice that cut through Victoria's tirade was quiet. Dangerously quiet. But somehow, it silenced the entire room. I looked up, my heart hammering, and found myself staring into the darkest eyes I'd ever seen. The man who'd spoken stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, a crystal tumbler of amber liquid frozen halfway to his lips. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of tailored black suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from granite, all sharp angles and harder edges. But it was his eyes that trapped me. Coal black and currently fixed on me with an intensity that made my knees weak. Not on Victoria. On me. More specifically, on my left shoulder, where my cheap polyester uniform had slipped slightly, revealing the edge of the scar I usually kept hidden. A jagged, pale line that ran from my collarbone down toward my shoulder blade. The scar I'd had since I was 15. The scar I never talked about. The tumbler slipped from his fingers. It fell in slow motion, crystal meeting marble with a crack that echoed through the silent ballroom. Expensive whiskey spread across the pristine white floor like spilled blood, but the man didn't even glance down. He was moving toward me, pushing through the crowd with singular focus, his face pale beneath his olive complexion. "Everyone out!" His voice was still quiet, but it carried absolute authority. No one questioned it. No one even hesitated. Victoria sputtered. "Excuse me? Do you have any idea who I am? My husband!" The man's gaze finally shifted to her, and whatever she saw in those black eyes made her stumble backward. "I said everyone out. Now!" The room emptied like someone had pulled a fire alarm. Victoria practically ran for the exit, her designer heels catching on the champagne-soaked carpet. The other servers vanished. The guests evaporated. In less than 2 minutes, the penthouse ballroom was empty, except for me and this stranger who was still staring at me like I was a ghost. My pulse thundered in my ears. I should leave. I should run. Every instinct screamed at me to put distance between myself and this man, whose presence radiated danger like heat from a flame. But my feet wouldn't move. I stood there clutching my empty serving tray like a shield, as he closed the distance between us, with slow, deliberate steps. "Show me." His voice was rough now, almost hoarse. "Your shoulder. Show me." I should go. I need to— Please." The word sounded like it cost him something. "I need to see." My hands shook as I set down the tray. Something in his face, the desperate edge to that hardness, the way his jaw clenched like he was fighting for control, made me reach for the collar of my uniform. I pulled it aside, revealing the full length of the scar. 8 inches of puckered, pale tissue that had never quite healed right. I watched his face as he stared at it, watched the color drain from his already pale complexion, watched his hands curl into fists at his sides, knuckles going white. Watched what might have been anguish flicker across those granite features. "Dio mio," he whispered. "It's you. After all this time, it's actually you." I don't understand." My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" "My name is Dante Moretti." He said it like I should recognize it. When I didn't react, something that might have been relief crossed his face. "You don't know me. Should I?" "No. God, no." He dragged a hand through his dark hair, disturbing its perfect styling. "But I know you. I've been looking for you for 10 years. 10 goddamn years." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. That's not possible. I don't know you. I've never met you before in my life." "Not me. You've never met me." He took another step closer, and I could see now that his hands were shaking too. "But 10 years ago, you met my younger brother, Marco. He was 17. You were 15. And the night you met him was the night I lost him. The world stopped. 15. I'd been 15. The summer before my junior year of high school. The summer that had ended with blood and screaming, and a knife that had carved its way through my shoulder as I'd tried to protect. "Oh my God!" The words escaped me like a prayer. "Marco." I'd never known his last name. He'd been the new kid at the summer community center program. Quiet and intense with haunted eyes that never quite smiled even when his mouth did. We'd been friends, just friends, but close ones. He'd told me he was in trouble, that bad people were looking for him, that he might have to leave suddenly. And then that night in August, they'd found him. 3 men, a dark alley behind the community center. Marco pulling me behind him, trying to shield me. The glint of a knife. His voice shouting at me to run. My own voice screaming back that I wouldn't leave him. And then pain, white-hot and blinding, as the blade meant for Marco caught my shoulder instead. I'd woken up in the hospital 2 days later. My mother told me a boy had been found dead in that alley. No ID. No family to claim him. And because I'd been unconscious and my mother had been terrified of police involvement, we'd been undocumented immigrants then, barely scraping by, I'd never told anyone what I'd seen, what I knew. I'd carried that guilt for 10 years. "You tried to save him." Dante Moretti's voice cracked. "The police report said there was blood at the scene that didn't match Marco's. Female, but you were gone before they could trace it. And I've spent 10 years trying to find the girl who tried to save my brother's life. The girl who got hurt trying to protect him when I couldn't." Tears burned my eyes. "I'm so sorry. I tried to stop them, but..." "Sorry?" He looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Dio, no. You don't apologize. You were 15 years old and you put yourself between my brother and a knife. You could have run. You should have run. But you stayed." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "You stayed. He was my friend. He was my responsibility." The anguish in his voice was raw, bleeding. I was 22. I was supposed to protect him. I was supposed to keep him safe from my world, from my life, from the family business that got him killed. But I failed. And you, a 15-year-old girl, you did what I couldn't. You were there. You tried. What do you mean, family business? But even as I asked, pieces were clicking together in my mind. The way everyone had evacuated the room at his command, the authority in his voice, the danger that seemed to shimmer around him like heat waves. "What are you?" His jaw tightened. "Nothing you need to fear. Not anymore. Not ever." That's not an answer. No, it's not. He took a breath, and when he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. "My family has business interests throughout New York, some legitimate, some less so. Marco wanted nothing to do with it. He was good, pure, everything I wasn't. So I got him out. Set him up in a different neighborhood with a different last name. Thought I could protect him by keeping him away from my world. His laugh was bitter. But my enemies found him anyway. Used him to send me a message. And a brave girl who should have been nowhere near my world got hurt in the crossfire. You're in the Mafia. It wasn't a question. He didn't confirm or deny. Just held my gaze steadily. I'm a businessman. A very powerful one. And I've spent the last decade making sure the men who killed my brother, and the organization they worked for, no longer exist. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the cold certainty in his voice. This man had wiped out an entire criminal organization. For revenge. For Marco. Why were you looking for me? Because you're the only person in the world who tried to protect him. The only person who cared enough about a lonely kid to risk yourself for him. And because... He stopped, jaw working like he was fighting with the words. Because I needed to know you were okay. That you'd survived. That my failure hadn't destroyed your life too. I'm fine. The automatic response came easily. Too easily. His dark eyes swept over me, the cheap uniform, the worn shoes. The shadows under my eyes from working 3 jobs to make rent in this brutal city. Are you? And suddenly, stupidly, I wanted to cry. Because no, I wasn't fine. I'd been barely surviving for years, working myself to exhaustion, living in a 5th-floor walk-up with mold in the bathroom and sirens every night. I'd been so focused on just making it through each day that I'd forgotten what fine even felt like. I'm alive, I said instead. That's enough. No. The word was sharp. Final. It's not. You don't get to decide that. You're right. I don't. He stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne now. Something dark and expensive, like cedar and smoke. But I can make sure you never have to work another catering job where people like Victoria Ashworth treat you like dirt. I can make sure you never have to worry about rent or safety or anything else ever again. Let me help you. Why would you do that? Because 10 years ago you saved the only person I ever loved, and I owe you a debt I can never repay. Pride warred with desperation in my chest. I'd been taking care of myself for so long. Since my mother died 3 years ago, I'd had no one. The idea of accepting help, especially from a dangerous stranger whose world I didn't understand, terrified me. But God, I was tired. So tired of struggling and scraping and barely surviving. I don't want your money. The words surprised me as much as they seemed to surprise him. If you want to help me, if you really want to do something for Marco's memory, then help me do something that matters. He told me once that he wanted to help kids like him. Kids who didn't fit anywhere. I want to start a program. A real program. For teenagers who need a safe place. Something shifted in Dante Moretti's face. The hardness softened just a fraction, and what emerged beneath it was something raw and real and almost heartbreaking. In Marco's name. In Marco's name, I agreed. Then consider it done. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. My people will reach out to you tomorrow. We'll set everything up. Space, funding, staff, whatever you need. Just like that. Just like that. He looked up from his phone, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. But there's a condition. Of course there was. What? You let me protect you. Before I could protest, he continued, the world I exist in is dangerous. And now that we've been seen together, now that I've cleared a room for you, people will notice. People will ask questions. And some of those people might see you as leverage against me. So you let me keep you safe. I can take care of myself. I've been doing it for years. I know you can. That scar proves it, but you shouldn't have to. His voice dropped. Please. I couldn't protect Marco. Let me protect you. There was something in his face, a desperate edge to the authority, a plea beneath the command, that made me nod before I could overthink it. Okay, but I'm not some damsel. I have conditions too. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Name them. I keep my independence. I make my own decisions. And you tell me the truth, always, no matter how ugly it is. Done. He held out his hand. Do we have a deal? I looked at his outstretched hand, broad palm, long fingers, a silver ring on his right hand that probably cost more than my car. This was insane. I was making a deal with a mafia boss, a man who'd admitted to destroying an entire criminal organization, a man whose world was violence and power and danger. But he was also a man who'd spent 10 years looking for the girl who'd tried to save his brother, a man whose grief was still raw enough to crack his voice, a man who looked at me like I was something precious and breakable and worth protecting. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong and gentle. The contact sent electricity up my arm, made my heart stutter. His eyes widened slightly, like he'd felt it too. I need your name, he said softly. Elena Vasquez. Elena. He said it like a prayer, like a promise. Thank you for trying to save him, for being there when I couldn't, for surviving. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Come on. He released my hand, but the warmth of his touch lingered. Let me take you home. I can take the subway. No. The word was firm. Not anymore. Not while you're under my protection. Under his protection. The phrase should have terrified me. Instead, for the first time in years, I felt almost safe. The car waiting outside was a sleek black Mercedes, with windows so dark I couldn't see inside. The driver, a mountain of a man in a crisp suit, opened the door without a word. Dante gestured for me to enter first, and I slid across leather seats softer than my own bed. He settled beside me, maintaining a careful distance, and gave the driver my address in a tone that suggested he already knew where I lived. That should have bothered me more than it did. How long have you known where I was? I asked as the car pulled into Manhattan traffic. 3 weeks. He didn't look at me, just stared out the window at the glittering city lights. My people finally traced the hospital records. You'd used a fake name, but there was enough detail about your injury for us to make the connection. I've been working up the courage to approach you. You? Needing courage? I couldn't quite keep the skepticism from my voice, that almost smile again. You terrify me, Elena Vasquez. You tried to take a knife from my brother. What do you think you'd do if I got too close? Probably something stupid and brave, I admitted. Seems to be my pattern. This time he did smile, properly, and it transformed his entire face, softening the hard edges, lighting those dark eyes from within. He was beautiful. Dangerously, devastatingly beautiful. I looked away quickly, heat rising in my cheeks. Tell me about the program you want to create, he said, and I was grateful for the change of subject. So I did. I told him about Marco, about the summer we'd spent talking about dreams and futures, and ways to help kids who felt lost. I told him about my own childhood as an immigrant kid who'd never quite fit in, who'd found salvation in community programs. I told him about my vision for a place where teenagers could come to feel safe and seen and valued. And he listened, really listened. Not just with polite attention, but with genuine interest, asking questions, making suggestions, promising resources I'd never dreamed of having access to. By the time the car pulled up outside my building, shabby and tired in the glow of the streetlights, I'd almost forgotten who I was talking to. He wasn't a mafia boss in that moment. He was just a man who cared about honoring his brother's memory. This is me, I said unnecessarily. Dante looked at the building, and something flickered across his face. Not judgment, exactly. More like determination. Not for long, he murmured. What? Nothing. He turned to me, and the intensity was back in his gaze. I'll have someone contact you tomorrow about the program space, and a security detail will be here in the morning. Don't be alarmed. They'll keep their distance, but they'll keep you safe. Is that really necessary? His jaw tightened. Yes. There was something in that single word, a weight of knowledge, of experience, of loss, that made me nod. Okay. He looked surprised. Just like that? You asked me to trust you, so I am. I reached for the door handle. Thank you, Dante, for everything. For looking for me. For wanting to honor Marco. For... Elena. My name on his lips was soft. Rough. Can I ask you something? Of course. That night, when you put yourself between Marco and that knife, were you scared? I thought about lying. About being brave. But I'd asked him for truth, and that meant giving it too. Terrified. I've never been so scared in my life. But you did it anyway. He was my friend, and he was good. Genuinely good. The world needed him more than it needed me. Dante's hand shot out, catching my wrist gently. Don't say that. The world needs you, Elena. It needed you then, and it needs you now. You don't even know me. I know you risked everything for someone you cared about. I know you've survived 10 years of guilt and struggle, and you still want to help others. I know you're the kind of person who makes deals for community programs instead of asking for money. His thumb brushed across my pulse point, and I shivered. I know enough. We stared at each other in the dim interior of the car, his hand warm on my wrist, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could feel it. The air between us felt charged, dangerous, full of things I didn't understand and couldn't name. I should go, I whispered. You should, he agreed, but neither of us moved. Finally, he released my wrist and sat back. Tomorrow. We'll start everything tomorrow. I nodded and fled into my building before I could do something stupid, like ask him to come up, like lean across the car and see if his lips were as soft as they looked, like tell him that I'd felt safer in the past 2 hours than I had in 10 years. I didn't look back as I climbed the 5 flights to my apartment, but I felt his gaze on me the entire way, protective and possessive and terrifying in its intensity. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of activity that left me breathless. True to his word, Dante's people contacted me the next morning. By noon, I'd seen 3 potential spaces for the community program. By evening, I'd signed a lease on a beautiful renovated warehouse in Brooklyn with hardwood floors, high ceilings, and enough space for art rooms and a computer lab and a full basketball court. It's too much, I'd protested to the man coordinating everything, a sharp-eyed accountant named Vincent, who seemed utterly unfazed by my concerns. Mr. Moretti's orders? Vincent had replied simply, as if that explained everything. And apparently, in Dante's world, it did. I met the security team he'd assigned me, 2 rotating shifts of intensely professional men, and 1 terrifying woman named Sandra, who could probably kill me 6 ways with a pencil. They kept their distance as promised, but their presence was constant. A shadow I couldn't shake. And through it all, Dante himself appeared and disappeared like smoke. He'd show up at the warehouse to check on renovations, always with an excuse about inspecting the work or reviewing contracts. He'd materialize at my favorite coffee shop. How did he know it was my favorite? When I stopped for my morning caffeine. He'd call late at night, his voice rough with exhaustion, asking if I needed anything. We didn't talk about the night we met. We didn't acknowledge the tension that crackled between us whenever we were in the same room. We kept everything professional, cordial, carefully distant. It was driving me insane. Because every time I saw him, every time I heard his voice or felt his gaze on me, something inside me pulled tight with want. Not just physical attraction, though God knew there was plenty of that, but something deeper. A recognition, a sense of rightness that terrified me even as it drew me in. 3 weeks after that night at the gala, I was at the warehouse overseeing the installation of art supplies when my phone rang. Dante's name flashed on the screen, and my traitorous heart skipped. Hi. Elena, his voice was strained. Are you at the warehouse? Yes, why? What's wrong? Stay there. Sandra's with you? She's outside. Dante, There's been an incident. Nothing for you to worry about, but I'm handling some business and I want to make sure you're secure. Don't leave until I get there. The call ended before I could respond. An incident. In his world, that could mean anything. Violence, betrayal, death. I tried to focus on organizing supplies, but my hands shook as I arranged paintbrushes and sketch pads. This was his world. The world Marco had tried to escape. The world that had gotten my friend killed. What was I doing? Getting involved with a man who dealt in violence and power? Letting myself care about someone whose life was measured in threats and incidents and calculated danger? 2 hours later, Dante arrived. I heard the commotion outside, car doors, voices, Sandra's sharp command for everyone to stay back. Then the warehouse door opened, and he walked in. He looked like violence incarnate. His suit jacket was gone. His white shirt was spattered with something dark that might have been wine, but probably wasn't. His knuckles were bloody. But it was his face that stopped my breath. All hard edges and colder eyes, the mask of civility completely stripped away to reveal the dangerous man beneath. This was what he really was. Not the careful businessman or the grief-stricken brother. This was Dante Moretti in his element. A predator, a killer. I should have been terrified. Instead, I crossed the warehouse floor and grabbed his damaged hand. What happened? Nothing you need to concern yourself with. His voice was flat, empty. Your knuckles are bleeding. They'll heal. Dante. I squeezed his hand gently. Talk to me. Something cracked in his expression. The coldness fractured, revealing pain underneath. Someone tried to use you. Word got out about the program, about my involvement, about you, and someone very stupid decided you'd make good leverage. My blood ran cold. What did you do? Made sure they'd never make that mistake again. He pulled his hand from mine, stepping back. I should go. You're not safe around me, Elena. I thought I could protect you, but all I've done is paint a target on your back. So that's it? You just disappear? It's better this way. Better for who? Anger surged through me, hot and sharp. You don't get to make that choice for me. You don't get to decide what I can handle. You don't understand what you're asking for. My world is dangerous and violent and dark. I know. I've known since the night we met. Since before that, really. Since the night Marco died. I stepped closer, forcing him to look at me. But that night also taught me something. That running doesn't keep you safe. That fear doesn't protect you. That the only thing that matters is choosing what you're willing to fight for. And what are you willing to fight for, Elena? This program, Marco's memory. I took a breath. You. He stared at me like I'd struck him. You can't mean that. I mean every word. These past 3 weeks. You've been more than just Marco's brother or my protector. You've been you. I reached for his hand again, ignoring the blood. I see you, Dante. Not just the dangerous parts. All of you. And I'm not running. You should. Probably. I smiled, despite everything. But I'm apparently very good at doing stupid, brave things. For a long moment, we just stood there. His hand in mine. His dark eyes searching my face for something I wasn't sure I could give him, but desperately wanted to try. Then he moved. One moment we were standing apart. The next, his hands were cupping my face and his mouth was on mine, and the entire world narrowed to that single point of contact. The kiss was everything I'd imagined and nothing I'd expected. Not gentle, not careful. But consuming and desperate and full of 3 weeks of tension finally breaking loose. He kissed me like I was air and he'd been drowning, like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 10 years. And I kissed him back with everything I had. When we finally broke apart, both gasping, his forehead rested against mine. His thumb traced my cheek with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. I can't lose you, he whispered. I can't lose someone else, He stopped, jaw clenching. Then don't. I covered his hand with mine. Stay. Fight with me. We'll figure this out. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having is. He laughed, short and rough, but genuine. When did you get so wise? I had a good friend once who taught me that brave doesn't mean unafraid. It means doing the right thing despite the fear. I smiled. His brother recently reminded me of that lesson. Dante's eyes shone with something that might have been tears. Marco would have liked you. Really liked you. I really liked him, too. He kissed me again, softer this time. Sweeter. A promise instead of a claim. Marry me. I pulled back. What? Marry me. He said it again, stronger now, more certain. I know it's insane. I know we've only really known each other for 3 weeks. But I've been looking for you for 10 years, Elena. And now that I've found you, now that I know what it feels like to have you look at me like I'm more than just the monster I've become, I can't let that go. Marry me. Let me protect you properly. Let me give you everything. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to be scared or struggling or alone again. That's the most unromantic romantic proposal I've ever heard. But I was smiling, crying, overwhelmed by the intensity of him. Is that a no? It's a, you're insane, and this is crazy, and we barely know each other. His face fell, started to harden again. It's also a yes. His eyes snapped back to mine. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you, Dante Moretti. Not because I need protecting or providing for, but because when I look at you, I see someone who spent 10 years carrying guilt that wasn't his to carry. Someone who loved his brother enough to destroy an empire in his name. Someone who looks at me like I'm brave instead of reckless. I took his face in my hands now, making him meet my gaze. I see someone worth fighting for. He crushed me against him, his face buried in my neck, his arms so tight around me I could barely breathe, and I felt wetness against my skin that might have been tears. I'll spend every day earning this, he whispered against my throat. Every single day. Just love me, that's all I need. I already do. God help me, I think I've loved you since the moment I saw that scar and realized you were real. That you'd survived. That someone that brave and good actually existed in this ugly world. We held each other in the middle of that empty warehouse. The space that would become Marco's legacy. The place where hurting kids would come to feel safe, and I knew with absolute certainty that this was right. Insane, yes. Reckless, definitely. But right. We should probably tell people, I murmured eventually. Soon. He pulled back just enough to look at me, and the tender possessiveness in his gaze made my toes curl. But first, I'm taking you home. My home, where I can keep you safe and spend the next several hours showing you exactly how much you mean to me. Heat flushed through me. That sounds perfect. He kissed me again, and this time there was promise in it, of protection and passion, and a future I'd never let myself imagine. The engagement announcement made the society pages 2 days later. Victoria Ashworth nearly choked on her morning mimosa when she saw it. The same girl she'd tried to humiliate was now engaged to one of the most powerful men in New York. But I didn't care about her reaction, or anyone else's. I cared about the man who'd spent 10 years searching for me, who'd seen a scar and recognized a story of bravery instead of just damage, who'd turned his grief into something beautiful by helping me honor his brother's memory. The Marco Moretti Youth Center opened 6 months later. Dante stood beside me at the ribbon cutting, his hand firm in mine, his ring heavy on my finger. We'd married quietly a month before, just us and a handful of his most trusted people, Sandra as my unlikely maid of honor. He'd be proud, Dante whispered as we watched the first group of teenagers explore their new safe space. We both would be, I corrected. This is for both of them. For Marco, who dreamed of helping kids like him, and for the 15-year-old version of me who needed a place like this. He kissed my temple. And for you, Elena Moretti. the bravest person I've ever known. I leaned into him, watching those kids laugh and play and just be safe, and thought about scars. About how they were stories written on skin. About how mine had led me to this moment, to this man, to this purpose. 10 years ago, I'd gotten a scar trying to save a boy I barely knew. Today, that scar had brought me a love I'd never expected, and a future I'd never imagined. And somewhere, I like to think Marco was smiling. But peace, I would learn, was a luxury people like us could never fully possess. 3 months after the center opened, I was reviewing grant applications in my office when Sandra burst through the door without knocking. Her face, usually composed to the point of being unreadable, was tight with something that looked dangerously close to panic. "Mrs. Moretti, we need to move you. Now!" I stood immediately, my heart lurching. "What's happened? Is Dante—" "He's fine. He's on his way. But we've got a situation, and you're the target." She was already moving, her hand on my arm, pulling me toward the back exit. "There's a car waiting—" The front windows exploded inward. Glass shattered across the hardwood floor in a glittering spray as 3 men crashed through, guns drawn. Sandra shoved me behind the desk, her own weapon appearing in her hand with practiced speed. But she was 1 against 3, and I watched in horror as one of the men, broad-shouldered with cold blue eyes, aimed directly at her head. "Don't!" The word came from the doorway, and my blood turned to ice. The man who stepped through was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a face like weathered stone. But it was his smile that terrified me. Cruel and cold and completely confident. "Put the gun down, Sandra, or I'll have my men kill every single child in this building. There are 43 of them here today. I counted." Sandra's hand trembled. The first time I'd ever seen her composure crack. Slowly, she lowered her weapon. "Good girl." The man's gaze shifted to me, and I felt pinned like a butterfly to a board. "Mrs. Moretti, how lovely to finally meet you. I'm Richard Castellano." The name hit me like a physical blow. I'd heard it before, whispered in conversations Dante thought I wasn't listening to. Richard Castellano, the head of the organization Dante had supposedly destroyed 10 years ago. Except clearly he hadn't destroyed all of it. "What do you want?" My voice shook, but I forced myself to stand to meet his eyes. "What do I want?" He laughed, the sound scraping like metal on stone. "I want what your husband took from me. My empire, my reputation, my sons." His face twisted. "Dante Moretti spent 10 years systematically dismantling everything I built. He killed my soldiers. He destroyed my businesses. And he murdered my 3 boys. All because of his precious little brother. Marco was innocent. Marco was a weakness." The words exploded from him, flecks of spittle at his lips. "And you. You're Dante's weakness now. The pretty little charity case he's obsessed with. Do you know what he did when he found out I was still alive? When he learned I'd been in hiding, rebuilding, waiting for the right moment?" He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. "He quadrupled your security, started sleeping with a gun under his pillow, nearly went insane trying to fortify every possible vulnerability. All because of you. So this is revenge." My hands clenched at my sides. "You're going to kill me to hurt him." "Oh no, nothing so simple." His smile widened. "I'm going to make him choose. You see, I have men positioned at 5 locations right now. This youth center, the restaurant where Dante's having lunch with the mayor, the hospital where his cousin just had a baby, the elementary school his nephew attends, and the church where his mother lights candles every Sunday morning." He pulled out his phone, showed me a screen split into 5 video feeds, live footage of each location. "1 phone call from me, and all 5 get hit simultaneously. Hundreds of casualties, children, families, innocent people." My stomach turned to ice, but I'm a reasonable man. "I'll let him save 4 of those locations. I'll only hit 1. He leaned in close enough that I could smell his cologne, expensive and cloying. The question is, which one will he sacrifice? His political connections? His family? His mother? His breath was hot against my ear. Or you, and all these beautiful children you care so much about. You're a monster. I'm a businessman who understands leverage, and right now, you're going to call your husband and deliver my message. Because if you don't, if you try to warn him or alert anyone, I hit all 5 locations. Everyone dies, including you. He shoved the phone into my hands. Dante's number was already pulled up on the screen. My thumb hovered over the call button. Sandra was being held at gunpoint, her face a mask of barely controlled rage. Through the office window, I could see the main room where teenagers were laughing, playing pool, completely unaware of the nightmare unfolding 20 feet away. Marco had dreamed of a place where kids could be safe, and now it was being used as a weapon. I pressed call. Dante answered on the first ring. "Elena, I'm on my way," Sandra said. "There's a man here named Richard Castellano." My voice was surprisingly steady. "He says you know him." The silence on the other end was absolute. Then low and deadly. "Put him on the phone." "Not yet." I kept my eyes on Castellano. "He wants me to give you a message first. He has men at 5 locations, here at the center. Where you are now, the hospital with your cousin, your nephew's school, and your mother's church. He says he'll only hit 1 location, but you have to choose which one. You have 10 minutes to decide. Elena, listen to me very carefully. He says if you try to evacuate anyone or call the police, he hits all 5. My hand tightened on the phone. He says you have to choose. No. Dante's voice was raw. No, don't do this. Richard, I know you can hear me. Take me. Let everyone else go and take me. I'll surrender. You can do whatever you want to me. Just let them go. Castellano laughed. Not good enough. You don't get to be the martyr. You get to be what I was, a father who had to watch his children die because of someone else's choices. He grabbed the phone from my hand. 10 minutes, Moretti. Then I start killing. He ended the call and pocketed the phone. Now we wait. Those were the longest 10 minutes of my life. I stood there, watching the seconds tick by on Castellano's watch. My mind racing through possibilities and finding none. There was no way out, no clever solution. Just an impossible choice and hundreds of lives hanging in the balance. Sandra's eyes met mine across the room. She gave the tiniest shake of her head, and I knew what she was trying to tell me. Don't do anything stupid. Don't be a hero. But stupid and heroic seemed to be my specialty. He'll choose to save the children, I said quietly. Castellano looked at me. What? Dante. He'll sacrifice himself and me to save the kids. The center, the school, the hospital. All of them have children. He won't risk them. I met his gaze steadily. So you won't win. Even if you kill us, even if you hurt him, he'll still have chosen the innocent over himself. He'll still be the better man. Something flickered in Castellano's face. Rage. And beneath it, something that might have been pain. My sons were innocent once, he said softly, before your husband killed them. Were they? The words escaped before I could stop them. Or did they help murder a 17-year-old boy in an alley? Did they hold the knife that scarred me? His hand shot out, gripping my jaw hard enough to bruise. You don't get to speak about my boys. And you don't get to use children as weapons. I didn't pull away. Whatever you think you're doing, whatever revenge you think this is, Marco wouldn't have wanted this. He hated violence. He hated everything about your world, and Dante's world. And you're about to destroy the one good thing built in his memory. I don't care about some dead boy's memory. Then you've already lost. My voice was quiet, certain, because Dante cares. And he'll make the right choice. And you'll have done all of this for nothing. For a moment, I thought he might kill me right there. His fingers tightened on my jaw, his face purpling with rage. Then his phone rang. He released me, answered it. "Time's up, Moretti. What's your choice?" I couldn't hear Dante's response, but I watched Castellano's face cycle through confusion, then fury, then something that looked like grudging respect. "You're bluffing." A pause. "That's suicide." Another pause, longer this time. "Fine. Your funeral." He ended the call and looked at me with something that might have been pity. "Your husband is either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish." He nodded to his men. "Secure her. We're leaving." "What? Why?" I struggled as rough hands grabbed my arms. "What did he choose?" Castellano was already heading for the door. "None of them. He chose to give me what I really wanted." "Which is?" He paused at the threshold, looking back at me with that cold smile. "Himself. He's at your apartment right now, alone, unarmed, waiting for me." His smile widened. He traded himself for all 5 locations. For you, for the children, for everyone. No. You can't. He'll die." "That's rather the point." Castellano nodded to his men. "Bring her. She can watch." They dragged me toward the door. I fought, kicked, screamed. Sandra lunged forward, but one of the gunmen struck her across the temple with his weapon, and she dropped. "Sandra!" But they were pulling me through the shattered window, past the teenagers who were finally starting to realize something was wrong. Their voices rising in confusion and fear. "It's okay," I shouted to them, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "Stay inside. Call the police. Tell them." A hand clamped over my mouth, cutting off my words. They shoved me into a black SUV, Castellano sliding in beside me while 2 of his men took the front seats. The vehicle lurched into motion. "Please." I turned to Castellano, tears streaming down my face now. "Please don't do this. Kill me if you want revenge, but not him. Not Dante. Touching. But I've waited 10 years for this." He stared out the window as Manhattan blurred past. 10 years of hiding like a rat while he dismantled everything I built. 10 years of planning and plotting and waiting for the perfect moment. And he gave it to me. His weakness. You. Then you already have what you wanted. You've hurt him. Let that be enough. It's not about hurt, little girl. It's about balance. He took my sons. I take his life. That's justice. That's not justice. That's just more death, more grief, more emptiness. I grabbed his arm, desperate now. Your sons are gone. Killing Dante won't bring them back. It'll just create more pain, more people destroyed by this cycle of revenge. Good. His voice was cold, final. Let the whole world burn. I've got nothing left to lose. The SUV screeched to a stop outside my building. The same shabby walk-up where Dante had dropped me off that first night, where I'd thought I was safe. Castellano's men dragged me out, hauled me up the 5 flights of stairs. My apartment door was open. Inside, Dante stood in the center of my small living room. He'd been true to his word, unarmed, waiting, his hands loose at his sides. But when he saw me, when his eyes met mine, the mask of calm cracked. "Elena." My name was anguish on his lips. "I told you to come alone," Castellano said mildly, shoving me forward. I stumbled, and Dante caught me, pulled me against him. "Are you hurt?" His hands were on my face, tilting it up, checking for injuries. "I'm fine. Dante, you can't—" "Shh." He pressed his forehead to mine. "It's okay. Everyone's safe. The center, the school, all of them. That's all that matters." "You matter." I grabbed his shirt, fisting the fabric. "You matter to me. You can't just— I can. And I will." He kissed me, soft and sweet and devastating. "You taught me that, remember? Brave doesn't mean unafraid. It means doing the right thing despite the fear. Don't you dare use my words against me. Enough." Castellano's voice cut through. He raised his gun, pointing it at Dante's head. "Step away from him, girl. Unless you want to watch his brains paint your walls." I tightened my grip on Dante. No. Elena, no. I turned to face Castellano, keeping myself between him and Dante. You want him? You go through me first. Dante tried to pull me aside. For God's sake, Elena! Isn't this romantic? Castellano sneered. The little hero, playing brave again. But you can't take a bullet for him, sweetheart. You're not fast enough. Maybe not, but I can make you choose. I stood straighter, forcing my voice steady. You pull that trigger, and you'll have to shoot through me to get to him. You'll kill an innocent woman. Someone who had nothing to do with your son's deaths. Someone whose only crime was trying to honor a dead boy's memory. I took a breath. Is that really the legacy you want? Is that really justice? Murdering an unarmed man and his wife? My sons didn't get trials. They didn't get chances. Why should he? Because someone has to break the cycle. My voice cracked. Because if you do this, someone else will come for revenge on you, and then someone will come for them. And it never ends. It just goes on until everyone's dead and there's nothing left but blood and grief. I thought of Marco, of his gentle smile and kind eyes. Is that really what you want? More death? More destroyed lives? Or do you want something better? Something that means your son's deaths led to something other than just more killing? For the first time, Castellano's hand wavered. The gun dropped an inch. What are you saying? I'm saying Dante was wrong. You both were. Revenge didn't fix anything. It didn't bring anyone back. It just created more pain. I held out my hand. But what if we tried something different? What if instead of more death, we chose life? The center, Marco's center, it could honor your sons too. We could create programs in their names. Help kids so they don't end up in this life. So they don't have to die in alleys or watch their fathers destroy themselves with revenge. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything. I stepped closer, my hand still extended. Your sons are gone. Killing Dante won't change that. But helping kids like they used to be, keeping others from following the same path, that's something. That's a legacy that means something. Behind me, Dante was completely still. I could feel the tension radiating from him, could sense him calculating distances and angles, preparing to throw himself between me and the gun if Castellano decided to fire. But Castellano just stared at my outstretched hand. Why? His voice was hoarse. Why would you offer me this? After I threatened you, threatened those children. Because I'm tired of people dying. Tears streamed down my face. Because I watched a good person die when I was 15, and I've carried that grief every day since. Because I married a man who spent 10 years destroying himself with revenge, and I can't watch him die too. Because somewhere, there has to be a better way. There has to be. The silence stretched. Endless. Suffocating. Then, slowly, Castellano lowered the gun. You're either a saint or a fool, he said quietly. Probably both. I gave him a watery smile. What do you say? Can we try? He looked at the weapon in his hand. At Dante. At me. And something ancient and tired moved across his face. My boys' names were Michael, Anthony, and James, he said finally. If you're serious about this, about honoring them, those are the names you use. I nodded, not quite believing this was happening. Michael, Anthony, and James Castellano will create scholarships in their names, programs, opportunities for kids who need them. And him? Castellano gestured at Dante with the gun. What about what he did? What he did was grieve his brother the only way he knew how. Just like you grieved your sons. I looked back at Dante, at the man I'd somehow fallen in love with despite everything. But grief doesn't have to mean more death. It can mean something better, if we choose it. Castellano stared at us for a long moment. Then he tucked the gun away. One chance. You get one chance to make this mean something. But if you cross me, If this is some trick... It's not a trick, Dante said, speaking for the first time since Castellano lowered the gun. His voice was rough. You have my word. We'll honor your sons. We'll make their names mean something good. Castellano nodded slowly. Then I guess we're done here. He moved toward the door, his men following. At the threshold, he paused. Your wife is either going to save you or get you killed, Moretti. I know, Dante said, pulling me tighter against him. I'm counting on the first option. The door closed behind them. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Dante's knees buckled, and we both sank to the floor, clinging to each other. You magnificent, terrifying, insane woman, he breathed against my hair. Do you have any idea how close that was? I had to try. I couldn't just watch him kill you. So you offered to memorialize his dead sons? The sons I killed? They were kids once, before everything, and their father deserves to remember them as who they were, not what they became. I pulled back to look at him. Just like Marco deserves to be remembered for who he was. Good. Kind. Hopeful. Dante cupped my face, his thumbs brushing away my tears. You saved us. Again. When I was 15 years too late, you stepped between Marco and a knife. And today, you stepped between me and a bullet. You keep saving my family. We're family now. That's what we do. He kissed me then, desperate and relieved and full of promises about never letting me out of his sight again. 6 months later, we held another ribbon-cutting ceremony. This one was for the new wing of the Marco Moretti Youth Center. 3 new scholarship programs were announced. The Michael Castellano Memorial Fund for kids interested in business, the Anthony Castellano Arts Program, and the James Castellano Athletics Initiative. Richard Castellano stood beside us, uncomfortable in a suit that probably cost less than his usual wardrobe. But he was there. And when the first group of scholarship recipients, kids from neighborhoods torn apart by gang violence, received their awards, I saw something in his face that looked almost like peace. Thank you, he said quietly as the ceremony ended. For giving their names back to me, for letting me remember them as my boys, not as, they were your sons, I said simply. They deserve to be remembered. He nodded once, then walked away. Dante watched him go, his arm around my waist. Do you think it'll last? I asked. The peace? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not, but we gave it a chance. He turned me to face him. Because of you. Because you refused to accept that more death was the only answer. I'm not a hero, Dante. I'm just tired of losing people. You're my hero. The woman who keeps choosing hope when the rest of us choose violence. The woman who sees the best in people even when they show her their worst. He kissed my forehead. You're everything, Elena Moretti. I leaned into him, watching the scholarship kids explore their new opportunities, their faces bright with possibility. And I thought about scars again, about how they told stories, about how mine had led me here, to this moment, to this man, to this chance to break cycles instead of perpetuating them. Some scars were meant to remind us of pain, but others were meant to show us we'd survived, that we'd endured, that we'd chosen to turn our wounds into something beautiful. And as Dante held me close and the future stretched out before us, bright with second chances and new beginnings, I knew that my scar had given me the greatest gift of all. Not just survival, but life, real life, full of love and purpose and hope. And that was worth every moment of fear it had taken to get here.